For over a decade, we were fed a narrative of devotion, of family, of a love that seemed to multiply with every Christmas that came around. We watched as they put down roots, as they raised their family, as they lived a life that most of us could only dream of. We were led to believe that their most fundamental strength lay in their togetherness, that their family was their greatest strength. That was a lie. Their greatest asset wasn't a house, not land, their story, their rights to their lives, their heartbreaks, their triumphs, all for millions of viewers, and he stole that too. Welcome back to the Sister Wives crew. What you're about to hear isn't just gossip, it's a story that's been simmering quietly in the shadows of the Ponderosa Pines in Flagstaff, a story pieced together from insider whispers, deep dive analysis, and exclusive theories that paint a picture so dark it could completely change how you see this family. This isn't just a matter of physical altercations over property boundaries and who gets daddy's attention. This has everything to do with the foundation of their television empire. This, of course, is a tale of alleged TLC contract fraud. Now, before we lift the curtain on what might turn out to be a multi-million-dollar scam, we need your help. If you think that these women should get some form of justice, if you're sick of all of these secrets and all of these lies, take a minute to click that like button. It lets YouTube know that this content matters. And if you haven't joined our crew yet, click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. Now, let's dive in. The corporate illusion. More than a family, but less than a partner. Sister Wives described a family consisting of one man, 4 women, and their 18 kids, all working as a unit. They claim to offer their viewers a partnership in parenthood, in their spiritual lives, and in their finances. So when this television contract with TLC was inked in 2010, what was presented to the public, including this story from TLC, was that this was a family agreement, a very profitable agreement, whereby all of us would come out of this uncertain period with our finances in order. That, in essence, was what we were meant to believe. But sources that know the early history of production reveal a very different story. A story of partnership, of course, but rather of patriarchy, written not in scripture, but in corporate Tartar. Just before their show debuted, a new business was incorporated, say sources who've been monitoring corporate filings of Brown family businesses for many years. To avoid confusion, let's simply refer to it for what it was, Patriarch Productions LLC. Possibly from a purely technical standpoint, it would have been named Kody Brown Family Entertainment LLC, Brown Family Media, among other possibilities. Notions of names are merely semantics. It's all about structure. It's true, said Eliza Vance, a reality TV specialist. It's unfortunately a common practice in reality TV, especially when it involves a large family. The networks like convenience. They don't want to deal with 5 different adults, so it's easier for them to work with a representative, with one person, with one check. So it's not uncommon for the networks to suggest, setting up a loan-out corp. A loan-out corporation is a simple form of entity that loans out the services of the talent to a production company. Here, it was the Brown family as a whole. But here's where this story becomes chilling. Our sources reveal that Kody Brown was the only member, manager, and owner of this company. His wives, Mary, Janelle, and Christine, with whom he shared a lifetime, were not co-owners. They were not partners. So, according to legal experts, this most likely meant that the women were being offered a position as an employee, or rather as an independent contractor for Kody's business. Eliza Vance described it bluntly when she said, "Well, trust me, there's a world of difference between being a co-owner and being an employee contractor. If you are a co-owner, you have every right to a share of the profits, access to the books, and input in how expensive funds are being used. Now you own part of a show. But as an employee or a contractor, you own only this, the amount you agreed on in your contract, nothing else. That looks a lot like being a helper in a show that features you." But then, Kody's constant assertions on screen that he's the head of the family take on a disturbing, loaded meaning. This wasn't a spiritual or traditional Dale role, but a corporate enforceable reality from day one. This wasn't just a family, but a corporation where Kody was the CEO and his wives were his employees. Well, it was deceptively simple. Let's talk numbers. A size and longevity of a show like Sister Wives would easily earn that family somewhere in the range of $2 million to $4 million for a season in later years. To be completely conservative, let's say $2.5 million. And now, here's what else that $2.5 million check from TLC did that has blown all of our minds. It went to a Brown family joint account. After that, all of the power rested with Kody. As the CEO, appointed by no one, he controlled everything. Who was going to get their paycheck, how much it would be, and when. Each of their wives received a stipend or salary, a source with knowledge of the early season finances has revealed. While it no doubt seemed like a heaven-sent sum to a family that had threatened to bankrupt themselves, it was a relatively small part of a much bigger sum. Let's consider a simple example.
If all 4 of his wives were making around $150,000 for a season, that would total around $600,000. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, but when you consider the bigger picture, it's not that impressive. Since the total amount of payout from TLC was $2.5 million, it means that there was a total of $1.9 million in profit that Kody left untouched in his corporate account. This was profit that he alone has all the legitimate powers to control, invest, and dispose of as he wishes. But this is where it gets, in a way, even more shameful. The women whose lives were being recorded, edited, and distributed to millions of viewers allegedly lacked any legal right to even know that profit was being made. They were the ones who produced it, but he owned the plant, and for over a decade, that plant has been raking it in. So think back to the transition to Las Vegas. The show marketed it as a dramatic escape from religious persecution, where a family flees to find salvation in the desert. That was great television, and it was perfect for starting season 2. But what if what drove this action wasn't a strictly legal motive, but a monetary one as well? Perhaps this would provide the perfect way for Kody's stranglehold in this new corporate setting to tighten. This was explained by Franklin Adler, a finance consultant, as follows. When a person wants to cover their tracks financially or set up a whole new complicated system, a chaotic situation provides perfect cover. With 18 kids to move, a house to sell, and a whole new life to begin, it becomes easy to rearrange finances without many concerns. Old joint accounts are closed, new business accounts are opened, papers vanish in the next. The chaos becomes a benefit, not a bug. Now, let's consider Vegas. 4 beautiful homes in a private cul-de-sac. On screen, it seemed like the American dream, times 4. The women finally had their own world, their own sense of freedom. However, our theories reveal that in reality, the opposite occurred in the background. This marked the start of their complete reliance. Public property records indicate that the finances involved in purchasing those homes were complex. However, various sources claim that funds for the down payments and initial payments on those mortgages were not from a family trust and a joint account. They were from Kody's major corporation. And that's a major red flag. If a person has good moral character, if the corporation is on the mortgage, the corporation is in control. So what all this means is that in essence, if a wife wanted a divorce, her right to the equity in her house would become a major question of law. Was it her property or was it corporate property? Who in fact financed it? If she merely funneled it from one of Kody's LLC funds to a mortgage company, could she in fact say that she paid for it herself? The corporation in fact did. This is a powerful financial chain, and it is very, very hard to break. A golden cage. And who was assisting Kody in polishing this golden cage? Jenny Finkelstein. But by the time this family settled in Vegas, a fresh player had come onto the scene. This player was no longer just the 4th wife. From our analysis, she has also been emerging as a sort of de facto CFO of all of the Brown family business, aka Robyn Brown. Prior to her involvement in this Coast community, Robyn was a part of mainstream society. She had a previous marriage, a divorce, and comprehension of debt. While all of these women were brought up in a plural family lifestyle from a young age, our thesis argues that Robyn, unlike her sisters, was aware of how the contemporary world of credit, corporations, and contracts functioned. It was a role reversal, a dynamic where Kody had the patriarchal authority, but Robyn had a business plan, described a former crew member who wished to remain anonymous. When a meeting would take place, it would be talking about feelings, family, or domestic matters. Robyn would say very little, and then whisper in Kody's ear. Then, without missing a beat, Kody began talking about branding, long-term strategies, and corporate structures. According to this source, Robyn played a critical role in establishing this corporate structure. She understood that being an employee meant being in a dead-end job. The aim was, of course, ownership. Since Kody already owned the sole operation of the major LLC, it was important for her to create a side corporate structure that she would share with him. On screen, My Sister Wife's Closet was touted as a family business, where all of the wives would come together to create something of their own. However, as reported in filings, it seems that it was a Trojan horse, used by Kody and Robyn as a means of directing profits from their television LLC into a third business of their own. Financial consultant Franklin Adler explains, "It's a means of legitimizing expenses. Say you have a profit of $1 million in your primary television company, so you can't just squander it all on yourself without raising suspicious questions and severe tax implications, but you can put it in a startup company. This means you can move, for example, $500,000 from Patriarch Productions to My Sister Wife's Closet as a means of investing, or you loan it. So now this amount of money that was separate has been placed in a different company, where you can purchase office supplies, travel, stock, car rentals, whatever you need. This washes the original amount further from their TLC contract, which all 5 of them technically won." And who was running this business day to day? While all of the other wives were treating this like a hobby, Robyn was treating this like a full-time job. Our theory, she knew it wasn't just a jewelry business. It was the escape hatch, the legal vehicle to access and spend the vast sums of money that Kody has been hoarding from this TLC deal. While Mary, Janelle, and Christine were living on their salaries, carefully budgeting, and believing that the rest of the money was going into some vague family pot, that pot actually was being drained, sources said, into a business that primarily benefited the CEO and his anointed executive. And the proof was right there on our screens for years. Remember, Robyn's incessant need for a bigger, fancy rental, the parties, the Gucci gifts for the kids, and the rest of them wives pinching pennies and spreadsheeting and doing whatever they could to feed their families. We surmised that Kody and Robyn were working off an entirely different budget entirely, a corporate one. Then came Flagstaff, a land of broken promises. If Las Vegas represented the consolidation of Kody's financial control, Flagstaff was the attempt to make it permanent. The move to Coyote Pass was arguably the boldest, most audacious, and most destructive financial maneuver of his entire reign. It was pitched as a return to the family's roots, a sprawling paradise where everyone could finally live together on one property. But insiders paint a much darker picture. Coyote Pass wasn't a dream, it was a trap, a multi-million-dollar anchor designed to indebt the original wives to Kody's Central Corporation for the rest of their lives. Here's how it allegedly worked. The family bought the Coyote Pass land for $820,000. Making it happen had required the wives to dig deep. Janelle famously contributed a large portion from the sale of her Vegas home, hers, Mary's hers. They poured their life savings, the equity they had painstakingly built, into raw, undeveloped land.
But why did Kody, the supposed corporate dictator, finally relent? Our sources cite two reasons. The threat of legal discovery was too great. A long court battle could expose the whole corporate structure to the public and to the other wives. The potential fallout and legal costs far outweighed the value of Christine's home. Christine had one thing in her favor that the others did not: a new contract. By leaving, she became more valuable to TLC than ever before. The drama of her departure was pure ratings gold. The network, recognizing her star power, likely signed her to a new solo deal. Eliza Vance clarifies a solo contract. A solo contract changes everything. Suddenly, she has her own direct line to the network, her own agent, her own lawyer. She is no longer just talent being loaned out by Kody's company. She is her own brand, her own corporation. This gives her immense negotiating power. She can now go to Kody and say, "Give me the equity for my house, or my new contract allows me to do a tell-all that exposes the financial arrangement." In other words, checkmate. Christine walked away with her money, but actually, Christine walked away with the blueprint. She had shown that one could break free from this corporate prison. And back in Flagstaff, another prisoner was paying close attention, taking notes. The financial awakening of Janelle Brown. Janelle Brown was always the pragmatist, the one who worked outside the home, the one who understood finances, the one Kody often called his buddy or business partner. The irony, according to our investigation, is that the most business-minded wife may have been the biggest victim of the alleged business con. Years into the business, Janelle assumed she was always on the same financial page as Kody. She was investing in her future, her retirement, and a home for her boys with every little bit of life savings she put into Coyote Pass. She bought an RV because a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain, the symbol of her commitment to that dream. But after Christine was gone, Janelle's perspective started to shift dramatically. She realized that Christine had fought for and won financial freedom. Janelle then began seeing her own situation through a sharper lens. He would say things like, "You and I can have a headbutting contest, but I'm not going to do it in front of the children." Janelle replied, "It seems like I have to do everything by myself." On the surface, these fights seemed about respect, or Kody's absence. But seen through a financial lens, it was deeper. Janelle was a major stakeholder in an undeveloped investment, Coyote Pass, and the CEO was refusing to act. She was demanding a return on her investment. Kody, meanwhile, was deflectional, making excuses, treating her not as a partner but as a disgruntled employee. By this point, a former crew member had confided in us that, increasingly, Janelle had started to take these long off-camera talks with Christine. Almost in some weird way, Christine was deprogramming her. They'd be speaking on the phone for hours at a time. Once, after such a call, Janelle came back to film a scene with this look in her eyes: cold fury. Her eyes showed that she just clearly learned something that horrified her. What did she learn? Our theory: Christine walked Janelle through the alleged corporate structure. She explained that the family pot Janelle had been contributing to for years might not even exist, and that all the power and all the profits were consolidated in Kody's LLC. As financial analyst Franklin Adler explains, for someone who considers herself as financially savvy as Janelle, this realization would be devastating, a deep personal and professional betrayal. She would feel like a fool. But Janelle's a scrapper. Once she knew the game was on, she wasted little time mapping out her escape route. The objective was simple. She had to liquidate, get cash, and disentangle her name from the Coyote Pass money pit. This, we believe, explains her move into an apartment, her eventual separation from Kody. She was cashing out, but her money was stuck in the land. This is where a tense, behind-the-scenes negotiation probably occurred. Equipped with knowledge from Christine, as well as her own lawyer no less, Janelle went to Kody with a non-negotiable offer. "Buy me out. Give back to me the funds I sunk into this property. The funds for my home in Vegas. Now, or I will join Christine, and then we will make this all public." But then, Kody and Robyn found themselves with a rebellion on their hands, and it wasn't just from one side. The danger of being discovered was twofold. They would have been forced to draw on company funds of Patriarch Productions to pay Janelle off, which would have been yet another huge unplanned drawdown from their secret fund, stated a finance analyst. This topic has been further explained by Franklin Adler as, consider the cash flow. Firstly, they unexpectedly disbursed nearly $700,000 for Christine.
Now, a year later, Janelle comes knocking for her share, which would also be a substantial sum in the six figures. The emergency fund stash, which has been allegedly maintaining their luxurious lifestyle expenses and Robyn's mall escapades, was now being depleted to settle this hush money debt. This would send Robyn, their de facto CEO, into a complete panic. "I just don't understand why they're doing this," as she allegedly said. "I don't know what's going on." With this new perspective, Robyn's tears were not merely those of a family member, but those of a financial architect watching her empire fall apart. She knew where all of her financial skeletons were buried, and she had put them there. Every dollar she gave to Christine and Janelle meant that she gave a dollar less to herself and Kody, and she was running out of options. With Christine and Janelle finally able to support themselves and no longer under Kody's corporate umbrella, a change occurred. For the first time, they were able to do what they'd never been able to do before: compare notes. Mary, still on the fringe, was watching and listening. The three original wives were forming a new bond, not on a matter of faith, not on a matter of sharing a husband, but on a matter of being deceived. They were about to find out how much of a deception. With Kody no longer in control, Mary, Janelle, and Christine set about doing what should have been done a long, long time ago. They started talking, truly talking, exchanging financial records, memories of previous conversations, and slowly working towards piecing together a puzzle of what the past 12 years had looked like. It was a series of painful but also very vindicating meetings. Every wife brought a part of the puzzle. A person close to one of the wives recalled. Every wife brought a part of the puzzle as follows. Christine has experienced what it means to have a dispute over her house in court. Janelle, with her business acumen, went back to some of her earlier tax papers that she had co-signed without completely understanding. Mary also brought significant knowledge of when the family was lean, which highlighted discrepancies in finances, Dorothy said. Together, with the team of attorneys and forensic accountants that they allegedly employed, they started working on their case. And then they found it, the smoking gun. A legal insider has disclosed that it was discovered through the wives' team that the original articles of incorporation for the family-owned loan-out company were found. This reinforced their fears. Kody Brown, alone, was a member. And as an officer, almost from the very start, Robyn Brown. This was proof. This wasn't just Kody's patriarchal plan. It was a financial conspiracy between all of them. Robyn wasn't just a beneficiary, she was an architect. It's a different world now where this is the type of document that wins lawsuits. This is irrefutable evidence of corporate structure. The inclusion of Robyn as an officer is a bombshell. This blows up that she was just a wife. This puts her in a role as a key player in dealing with the very company she allegedly was being frauded by. But this document was only the beginning. The forensic accounting group did a thorough analysis of the LLC's biking data, procured under intimidation. What was allegedly discovered was a 10-year history of egregious misuse of finances. There were two patterns that were small, constant salary payments to the OG wives. Everything else. Extravagant, consistent spending on upscale retailers. Tens of thousands of dollars a year at Victoria's Secret, Nordstrom, and other upscale brands. Far in excess of what their screen salaries suggested. They also found lease payments for luxurious cars, which were exclusively used by Kody and Robyn. Payments for expensive vacations and trips for Kody, Robyn, and their children were allegedly never offered as family holidays on their TV show. Business loans from Patriarch Productions to My Sister Wife's Closet, which were never repaid, were in turn expensed as a normal part of doing business, a classic means of making funds vanish. And then, of course, there was the biggest bombshell of all, a direct trace of funds from this LLC account back to a down payment, and then payments on a mortgage for a multi-million-dollar estate in Flagstaff, owned by Kody and Robyn Wall. What it means, for example, this in our book is commingling of funds and corporate misrepresentation. Using corporate funds for your personal needs is a major red flag, especially when you consider that you are stewards of other people as well. In this case, the talent whose life stories are being used as funds for your corporation. The women's attorneys are now in a position to present their argument that every dollar that went towards treating Robyn to a shopping spree meant a lost dollar for them. And then finally, the proof was in their hands. This corporate structure, this paper trail, all these years of deception. They were the stars of a huge hit television show for over a decade, raking in tens of millions of dollars in revenue for TLC, as well as their family business, yet clearly being treated as low-level employees, begging for crumbs from the corporate feast while their CEO and favorite vice president live like kings on the back of their suffering. They were faced with a choice between leak it to the media and ruin their reputation, then walk away, or take something much more devastating. They chose war. This is the latest and most explosive breaking news in our investigation. Heeding a tip from a trusted legal informant, it appears that the OG3 women, in this case Mary, Janelle, and Christine, have lodged a huge, sealed suit. This lawsuit has absolutely nothing to do with family wealth or Coyote Pass. This suit represents a direct attack on the very foundation of the Brown family television empire. The suit lists Kody Brown Family Entertainment, LLC, as a defendant, as well as Kody Brown and Robyn Brown as individual co-defendants for their breach of fiduciary duty. This is a multifaceted attack that aims to recover a lost decade of income, seize control of their own life story, make the suspected corporate wrongdoers accountable. Our source has broken down this lawsuit into 3 different claims. The first, and as entertainment lawyer Eliza Vance terms it, the money shot, is for breach of fiduciary duty and fraudulent inducement. Literally, Vance went on, their attorneys will contend that the women's employment or contracting agreements are void insofar as those agreements were entered into for fraudulent purposes. The women were being fooled all along into thinking that they were involved in a family business and not being contracted to work for Kody's private company. These women are now retroactively asking for their due profits from every episode that they take. Let's see how this math adds up. On very conservative estimates, the family appears to have earned in excess of $30 million. Their share of 15 partners per wife would amount to $6 million. Taking into consideration what they were earning in salaries, which would be in excess of $1.5 to $2 million, their share alone would be in excess of $4 million, which would aggregate to over $12 million.
This suit charges that Kody and Robyn misrepresented the true financial structure, luring these women onto this show for a fraction of their market value. The second aspect of this lawsuit involves property that has been acquired with funds from this LLC. This involves Kody and Robyn's Flagstaff. Franklin Adler explains, if you can prove that a corporate asset was procured using improperly diverted funds, you can petition the court for seizure of that asset and for its compulsory liquidation in order to pay back those that were swindled. They are going for the house. They are claiming it wasn't a family home, but a property acquired with their stolen salaries, and it should be sold to pay their judgment. Picture it. Kody and Robyn, from king and queen of the castle to evicted, served an eviction notice due to a court-determined buyout of their house, with allegedly Mary, Janelle, and Christine's funds. Again, it's a rough but effective move. The third argument, I think, has a revolutionary as well as a prognostic flair. This argument has little to do with recovering funds from a bygone era. This has to do with determining that which will be in the entertainment lawyer Eliza Vance Sabo comments. Their attorneys are claiming that their contracts contain void work for hire provisions due to initial fraud. This means that these individuals are claiming that Kody's LLC does not own the intellectual property rights to their life stories. In other words, it's not that the women are just fighting for finances, it's that they are fighting for control of their own lives. They are asking for their likeness, their stories, and any past footage to not be used in any future episodes of Sister Wives or any spin-offs without their direct permission and compensation. This is the kill shot. Without the OG wives, Sister Wives as we know it simply cannot exist. There will not be a show with just Kody and Robyn. This suit allows Mary, Janelle, and Christine to literally shut down the show completely, or at least strong-arm TLC into working out new, separate, and very profitable contracts with all of them, excluding Kody altogether. They are taking back their means of production. They are taking back their story. If this lawsuit proceeds as our sources reveal, it would lead to a catastrophe for Kody and Robyn. A verdict for $12 million or higher would bankrupt them overnight. They would lose everything, their home, any remaining property in Coyote Pass, their savings, everything would be taken from them. And it doesn't end there. There is a claim of actual fraud, which opens it up to punitive damages. This alone has the potential for millions. Not to mention potential federal investigation from the IRS, who looks rather dimly upon using corporate funds for a personal savings account. A civil suit has the potential to escalate. It would be as reasonable as